What haunting noises echo in this abandoned manor?
Do ghosts really rattle door handles in an attempt to escape?
What shadowy figures lurk in the patient rooms?
Find out the answers to these questions and more as we uncover the mysterious hauntings and history from Pinelawn Manor in Sumner, Illinois.
I'm Sarah.
And I'm Erica.
And this is The Haunted Atlas, a Haunted U.S. podcast. In the interest of fully exploring history of certain locations, The Haunted Atlas may discuss sensitive or disturbing topics. Listener discretion is advised.
Beneath a storm-darkened sky, Pinelawn Manor and the neighboring Sumner Care Center stand abandoned, their cracked pavement, overgrown grounds, and empty windows hinting at a forgotten past. Pinelawn Manor in Sumner, Illinois was once paired together with the Sumner Care Center to provide care and attention to the town's elderly population and to those who were ill, and they're actually right across the street from each other.
Oh, that's kind of nice. Very convenient.
Yes, exactly. I thought it was a really good idea to purchase two buildings and have them both have their specific purposes, but kind of do the same thing.
Right.
Notably, both of these things provided jobs and employment to those in Sumner as well. This building is unique to many of the locations that we cover in the sense that not much is actually known about its early life. The main building of Pinelawn Manor may have started as a motel or a motor lodge in the mid-1900s according to recent research. However, we do know that by the early 1970s, traffic was cut down significantly due to the interstate being built, and so this motel or lodge was forced to close.
That is unique that there isn't history at least back into the early 1900s, which does leave a lot of questions that might linger for the hauntings.
Exactly. And what I was thinking is that we normally have at least the establishment purpose, and so we kind of have the earliest history. I feel like we're normally missing the middle parts of it, if anything.
Yeah, that's a good point, because something could have been abandoned or there could be poor records, etc.
Exactly. So the motel lodge was forced to close, right? And then in 1973, Pinelawn Manor was officially created as a home for adults who had physical disabilities. And across the street, like I said, Sumner Care Home was also built as an elder care home. For 20 years, the growth of these care facilities grew steadily, with the number of patients peaking in exactly 20 years, 1993, at 100 beds across both buildings.
That is a significant population.
It is, but I almost expected more.
Well, when you consider that these people will vary in their medical needs, many of them could need hands-on care, so that would require a very large staff.
That's very true. The way that I was thinking about it was in terms of these huge hospitals,
Right.
And because it's spread across two buildings, I was only 50 beds per building, approximately. I'm sure the split was a little bit different than that, but 50 beds per building didn't seem like a lot. I guess when you look at the building, it does make sense just based on how it's built, but yeah.
Yeah, if you consider that every person might have had a one-on-one aide, that's at least 100 staff just for that. Plus you need doctors, plus you need nurses, plus you need janitorial staff, etc.
Right. Yeah, you're right. So from 1993, Pinelawn Manor's story sees a decline in its service. Approximately 10 years later, in the early 2000s, care quality in the building declined, and it was unfortunately funding cuts that put the final nail in the coffin for the manor. They officially closed in 2005, but the Sumner Care Center was open until 2006.
I always feel so saddened hearing of the declining care in these places. When you think of these people that are elderly and might not have any other option but round-the-clock care, it is very sad.
That and the fact that, especially with the elder care home for Sumner Care Center, people's lives were there, and when it closed, they have to find a new place.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? People create lasting friendships in these places, and so it must be awful to have to remove yourself from that situation, and I'm sure not all of them go to the same place.
Right, and not only the friendships with the other patients there, but when you consider the staff and trusting people to take care of you, I'm sure it takes a while to build that trust, so to have staff that you care about and trust just kind of ripped away and you have to go form new relationships with the staff and the other patients, that's a lot to handle.
Exactly, and if you're already dealing with an illness, it's just going to be so difficult. These buildings then sat pretty much unused for almost 2 decades. Occasionally, they were actually open seasonally for haunted house events.
There's almost this strange pipeline from the purpose of a building to abandonment to temporary haunted house use to actual haunted location.
Right.
It seems that that pipeline is followed quite a few times.
I completely agree. In 2023, new management arrived. Anthony Christopher and his wife purchased the property, and since then, they've been attempting to undergo many renovations to open these buildings to the public. It seems specifically for public overnight investigations.
So did they buy the property knowing that it was haunted?
That's what it seems like to me. I couldn't find a ton of sources on their purpose or just like them in general. Mm-hmm. But I do believe that since this is what they wanted to do with the building, they probably kind of knew going into it. It's also possible that they kind of heard about this place as like the haunted house seasonal thing and maybe even investigated themselves. That is an assumption based mm-hmm. on nothing, just what I was thinking. But if I had heard about a place like this being seasonally used as a haunted house, I might try to do an investigation to see if there's any merit to the cheesiness,
Right. And with the location where that there may have been more significant loss of life versus a regular residential home, for example.
That is such a good point, because the other thing that I'm thinking of right now is like respect. If this place really is haunted, which of course it is, we're talking about it, I don't think that having a seasonal Halloween themed haunted house seems like the most respectful thing to do. Not that the people who did that were like aware or that, it was like disrespectful of them. Just, of course, like if there are spirits here, they're not going to want to be turned into a Halloween event.
And I think it also depends on the type of haunted house. Are you leveraging the patient beds and kind of sticking with the vibe of a care unit? Or have you turned it into something completely different? Because if you're exploiting the experiences of the people, then that's not okay, whether or not it's haunted.
Agreed. The Sumner Care Center was actually also opened for investigations in 2024. And both of these things are drawing new attention from the public. Visitors are becoming more and more common as paranormal stories come to light. Our known history of the building is a little bit light, but I was able to look through some past newspaper records in Illinois. Some newspapers had records or news of individuals who entered the facility, so you could see a person's name and when they entered.
It's so cool that in newspapers there used to be announcements for marriages, births, etc. My mom has the newspaper announcing my birth.
Oh my gosh.
I know. Isn't that cool? We should get back to that.
We should. I feel like now with cell phones and the way we can instantly communicate, that's not such a thing anymore because no one needs to look in the newspaper.
Right.
In another paper, I saw a position opening specifically in 1983 for a nurse's aide, and it was for the 3 p.m. to 11 p.m. shift. So we have not strayed too far from the shift divides.
Yeah, I get that. That still feels like a long shift. I know it's only 8 hours, but I think nurses are built different and nurse aides.
Yes. My gosh, yes. In 1996, there was another position open for a licensed practical nurse. And another report in 1996 was actually an obituary for Beulah Z. Green, who actually worked in the facility, and that was mentioned in her obituary.
Interesting. I thought that it was going to be an obituary for one of the residents, but it's cool that that was noted because it makes me feel like the staff took pride in working there.
Yeah, I thought the same thing. It was important enough in her life to be noted, Mm-hmm. The history of Pinelawn Manor, as well as its companion across the street, the Sumner Care Center, shows the area's steadiness across time, with both facilities caring for the residents of Sumner, Illinois in the latter part of the 1900s. And it seems as though Pinelawn Manor's residents may have also felt its steadiness, as the paranormal activity reported shows evidence of those in its past still hanging around.
Sheriff, we got a lot to talk about.
Welcome to Twin Peaks. I'm your Twin Peaks veteran, Special Agent Matt Hanna.
And I'm your first-time viewer, Sheriff Hannah.
And each week, we're visiting David Lynch and Mark Frost's Twin Peaks on our new show, Welcome to Twin Peaks, a Twin Peaks rewatch podcast.
Entering the town of Twin Peaks.
We're talking dreams, damn fine coffee.
A damn fine cup of coffee.
Back we're talking mysteries.
And asking the important questions like, who really killed Laura Palmer? Are the owls what they seem? And why does this town feel like a nightmare you don't want to wake up from?
It is happening again.
Whether you're a longtime Twin Peaks resident or stepping into the Black Lodge for the very first time, Welcome to Twin Peaks is your guide through the woods.
What kind of fantastic trees have you got growing around here?
New episodes every week wherever you get podcasts.
And be sure to follow our socials at Welcome to Twin Peaks Podcast for schedules and opportunities to call and write into the show.
I'm gonna turn it upside down!
The mysteries are dense and the secrets are dark.
We'll see you in Twin Peaks with a fresh cup of coffee.
With countless patients over its years of service, Pinelawn Manor holds a lot of history, and some locals say ghosts. The visual hauntings here actually seem contradictory to me. There are reports of many shadow figures in both the patient rooms and hallways, but also reports of strange lights.
So shadow figures and strange lights.
Yes, people report light abnormalities and things like light orbs, shimmery lights, and even flashes of lights that people see in the hallways.
The flashing lights to me are reminiscent of what you might see in the media, and I think even in real life with a defibrillator, where there's like a flash of light as you're reviving an individual. So I'm wondering if that's maybe what that is portraying.
It certainly could be, because we know that there were medical professionals here, so I'm sure they would have had access to things like that.
The shadow figures do make sense. I think we always kind of see those in facilities like this. I always think of shadow figures as people who may not want to be super represented. You know, maybe they're present, but they're not comfortable enough to show themselves. It's very different from the lights that people are experiencing.
I have a few theories, and I'm interested in your take. The first is that it's a juxtaposition between the patients and the workers, where one side is the light flashes and one is the shadow figures. My other thought is that if these people were towards the end of their life, they might have been weaker. It could be hard to have energy to present as an apparition, for example. So they might choose to conserve energy and present as a shadow figure. Now, we don't know that to be true. Obviously, we can't know that that's true. But that's my other theory. What do you think?
I did not think about that in terms of like nurses' presentations versus patient presentations, but that makes the most sense to me because I was trying to figure out, shadow figures to me represent the patients, but who could be the light? And I think you're right.
Part of my thought process with that is, they always say when you're in the hospital or have to get your vitals checked, you never get any sleep because they're always coming in and checking on you and turning on the light. So I'm wondering how many times these residents were trying to sleep in and they're like, oh, we have to come take your morning vitals, so it could really be a strong juxtaposition.
Yes.
However, the hauntings are not just visual because there are also physical hauntings here.
Whoa.
Visitors say that the spirits like to specifically play marbles, but that they'll actually move any small object across the floor. Some visitors even say that they have felt the spirits touch them as they're moving through these facilities. The reason behind touching visitors has been a bit debated. Some think that they might actively be trying to scare them, which kind of leans back to the haunted house attraction days. And some people say they have been physically encouraged to leave the building during investigations through EVP, spirit box, etc. That's a big span to me from playing marbles and seeming positive to pushing people or encouraging people to leave.
Well, the marbles, honestly, that haunting is kind of cute if they're like enjoying themselves and using the marbles as a way to pass time. It might be something that's keeping them at peace to have something to do. The first theory about physical touching, it would be so funny if during the time it was a haunted house, everybody got into it. And now that it doesn't happen anymore, all of the spirits are like, what happened? Why do we no longer get to scare people?
Right. They're like, wait, that was fun.
Yes, yeah. The second theory is what I was thinking of. If they're shadow figures and they don't want to be super represented, if they want to hide, then they also might not want people in their space. This was also a very sensitive place, so they might not love people searching for them. They might want to be left alone.
I completely agree. I think it's a very sensitive and vulnerable space. Anybody's home is. So to kind of be on display might not be something they're enjoying.
Right.
But I think the marbles specifically is super cute to me because when you think about the fact that, okay, it opened in the 70s, right? And for the people that were elderly at that time, you think back to when they must have been born, and marbles was pretty ubiquitous around the time that they would have been children. So what I think in a positive light is maybe it's their younger selves playing marbles with each other.
Oh, that would be really nice.
It would be very sweet.
Especially because care homes, and I know this because Zach works and has worked in a few at this point, really focus on activities, and they really do focus on the ones that generation liked to do. Bingo is a huge one right now. So I think it's really cool to think about people enjoying their afterlives, doing what they were doing when they were young and had a lot of energy.
Right. Or it could be grandchildren or children that are coming to visit, or even care workers that are playing and engaging with them. So I hold on to that as a sign of positivity.
Yes.
So we have covered visual hauntings, physical hauntings, and now it's time to discuss auditory ones. Visitors frequently report hearing disembodied voices and moaning. Investigations here have been known to yield EVPs, and some investigators report communication through spirit boxes, but that seems to vary based on who's doing the investigating. A lot of the EVPs that I saw are moans and things like that, or words like help or care.
The moaning is a little sad to me. I'm hoping that it's not someone who is still in pain.
That is a very sad one to me when you think of the potential of people to have suffered here.
Yes. Now, the EVPs, like you said, do make sense in context. I'm wondering if the spirits are trying to explain what the facility was.
I also wonder if we took a deeper look at some of the EVPs and some of these other hauntings, does it actually date back to when it was a hotel? Does it date back to even earlier? It could be that we're just missing a whole explanation for the hauntings because we don't have the hard evidence of the history.
Right.
Specifically at the Sumner Care Center, there are said to be many auditory hauntings. Investigators note sudden bangs, door slams, and your favorite, knocking.
Knocking. I knew that was going to be a thing here. I don't know how I knew, but I felt it.
It could just be residual of caregivers knocking on doors or shutting doors, things like that. The sudden bangs, maybe not so much unless someone was dropping something.
Those auditory ones are probably the things that scare me the most. If I'm seeing something in front of my eyes, usually I can react pretty calmly. But if there's a bang down the hallway, I'm freaked out immediately. And I don't know why. I guess because I can't see whatever it is with my own two eyes. If I saw a chair fall over and it banged, that, not a big deal. And I think that's what freaks me out with the knocking. It's like, I don't know who's knocking.
Yeah, people say fear is just manifestation of the unknown.
Yes.
So I think that makes a lot of sense because it's the unknown of who or what is causing that sound.
Right.
Did a mouse run somewhere and knock something over? Or is it a spirit? What kind of spirit is it? Are they happy, sad? Is it a residual haunting or not? We don't know. There are other auditory hauntings, and this is probably the freakiest to me. Doorknobs are heard rattling and shaking. And I wonder if this is people trying to get out or get in. Either way, I don't love this sound.
No, that might be worse than the knocking, actually. That's a little terrifying. I wonder if it is a patient trying to get out. I think that's what I first thought. But to consider the other side of things, it could be that a patient has accidentally locked themselves in the room and a nurse is trying to get in.
Or it could be that they're verifying the door is locked. Because you know how you lock a door and then you
Yes. Check? I do always check my doors.
It could be all of these things.
Right.
Even perhaps stranger is the additional auditory haunting of animal sounds, specifically growling.
Ooh, no.
And this is where we don't have a lot of information about what it was. Obviously, the land vastly predates civilization, so there are certainly animals that have lived here and perished on the grounds. But the sounds of growling are often accompanied by a shadow figure of an animal on all fours.
So the apparition paired with the growling makes it more paranormal to me, but the buildings are run down.
Right.
I wouldn't be surprised if there was an animal who growled somewhere in the walls or maybe like on top of the roof. I know that they're making renovations. Would we still hear the growling after all of the renovations have been made?
I think it's a good question. And is it a shadow figure that you're seeing against a light source that's behind it, or are you pointing a light at it and it's a shadow?
Right.
I think that's very important, because if it's backlit, it could be anything.
Right.
Versus if you're pointing a light at it and it's a black void, that's very different.
Yes, completely agreed.
While Pinelawn Manor has shadow figures of patients, Sumner Care Center has shadow figures and apparitions.
Ooh.
Apparitions are said to wear old hospital gowns and wander around. And there are also said to be shadow figures here that are more of black masses. Some people say the shadow figures will actually follow you around the property. And again, I think you have to consider workers versus patients here. I wonder if it's almost reversed here, where the patients are presenting as apparitions and the caregivers are the shadow figures, because it seems to me that it would be logical for a shadow figure that's following you around to have been an aide or something like that, assuming that you're a patient and trying to make sure you're okay.
Right. And because Sumner was the elder care home, I could see it being a resident there as well, because they might be like, what are you doing in my home?
That's true too.
You know?
It could go both ways.
Yeah.
And it could just be that it's a mix of patients and caregivers that are all choosing individually how to present. It doesn't have to be like they sat down as a committee and said, we're all going to present as shadow figures.
Yes.
So it could definitely be varied.
Now, the apparition that's in the hospital gown, the history that we talked about goes all the way through the 2000s. I'm wondering if some of the apparitions there in hospital gowns were there when it was still a care facility and just no one really noticed.
Or people did notice, but perhaps no one believed them.
Oh my gosh, you're right.
It definitely could be the case.
Yeah.
Because while everyone that works there would theoretically know all of the patients, it's possible that if someone was new or whatever, they couldn't recognize that it was an apparition versus a live patient.
Yeah, exactly.
Today, you can book either a ghost hunt or an overnight stay, with the property boasting guest rooms and a kitchen. If you have visited Pinelawn Manor, we would love to hear your story. You can email the team at hauntedus.com and include Haunted Atlas Pinelawn Manor in the subject, or find us on social media at HauntedUS. Tune in to the next episode to see where we drop the pin on our adventure across the Haunted US. This episode of Haunted Atlas was presented and researched by Sarah Sweeney and Erica Barrett, supported by research from Haunted US head writer Mitch Goth, with production assistance by David Sweeney and music by Colleen Johnson. Our executive producer is Brandon Rugsey. Haunted Atlas is a production of Haunted US. Visit hauntedus.com for more information.